Welcome back, viewers at home. You're certainly tuned in right here on Prime Live, and I am joined by my amazing guest, Mrs. Ayesha Kajee, who is going to be talking to us about a unique and immersive journey through some of South Africa's most spectacular landscapes. Now, to find out what am I all about, and where you can get the plug in terms of joining in on this adventure, certainly tune into this conversation because my guest is about to spill. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah so much for joining us this
Wa
evening.
alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shukran for having me on.
Always a pleasure. Now, just to understand more about the event prior to getting the details on the event, can you tell us a bit on what really inspired this adventure?
Well, something that very few people know about me is that my undergrad degree is in biological science with a minor in botany. And I've always been passionate about flowers.
Okay.
So, my botany lecturer was actually upset with me when I didn't do it as a major. But yeah, I love flowers. I have been to see the tulips in Holland. I'm still to go someday, inshallah, to see the cherry blossoms in Japan. But those things maybe not cost over 100,000 rands each if you were to go from South Africa now without flights.
Yeah.
For a little over 10,000 rand, if you need to get from Johannesburg to Cape Town, you can see a spectacular floral display on our doorstep.
Are you serious?
I am serious. People come from all over the world to see the Namaqualand daisies and the other flowers. And what really upsets me, what inspired me to start the tours up, was that when I went some years ago with a friend, there were very few black or brown people.
Wow.
And there were no other Muslims.
That is puzzling.
I met Japanese, I met Chinese, I met people from all over Europe, North America, South America, even other parts of Africa, believe it or not. Even a few from the Middle East. But really, very few South Africans except white South Africans. It's like this is a well-kept secret.
But what do you think is the reason behind that lack of exposure, if I can say?
Well, I think it's partly our legacy of apartheid when these areas were closed to us. But it's also, I believe, that, we tend to like what is foreign, unfortunately, rather than looking at what's spectacular in our own country. And believe me, this is a miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One day, there's desert. And the next day, there's carpets. Literally, I kid you not, carpets of flowers.
Whoa.
Carpets of color. It looks like an impressionist painting. You know, that painting method where they use the dots?
Yes.
It literally, this is the original impressionist. The original impressionist was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Subhanallah.
Really, it is so stunning.
You know, when you're saying this now, it makes me, really not take my backyard for granted in this instance because, I mean, you say what you're saying and seeing the displays that you brought for us to show us exactly what you are actually speaking on is something that, like, we need to really start exploring South Africa in its whole.
Absolutely,
But with that being said, what are some of the most distinctive or iconic species that visitors can expect to see during your tour lead?
Well, exactly what you're seeing on the screen right now, actually, the Namaqualand daisy, also known by its Afrikaans name, the Magritte, or the French name, the Marguerite. So that's the name, the French name for daisy. But within that daisy category, there are so many different species, so many different subspecies and, genuses, etc. And this area, this Namaqualand and Western Cape area, so I call it the Namaqualand and Western Cape Bloomscape.
Okay.
Right? Because it is an area of such huge floral biodiversity that there are actually 5 distinct floral regions in these 2 provinces, really. And we try to take our guests to see at least 3 or 4 of them. It would take 2 full weeks to see all of them, but we do try and take you to see as many as possible. And if one of the big flower shows is on, like the Clanwilliam Flower Show, the Darling Flower Show, then that's an added thing that we take our guests to see. We also try and take everybody to the Postberg section of the West Coast National Park, which is only open during flower season, so it's basically kept hidden until flower season.
Subhanallah. You know what? This is the tour to go on in this instance.
Absolutely. But if you don't get on this tour, I must say I also do whale tours. I do garden route tours. I do tours
Wow.
to southern Namibia, out here in Gauteng and the northwest as well. So these are small group tours, Maimuna. I put together tours either in a small vehicle like a Mercedes Vito
Yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
between 4 and 6 people,
Okay.
or slightly bigger ones for between 7 and 13 people in a smaller vehicle. But I don't like doing mass tours.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, my price is well below those people who do the mass tours and who stay in places like farms where the dogs come in and there may be pigs around and there isn't much halal food. So I stay in really nice places, usually self-catering accommodation, but of a high standard, or boutique hotels. And I really, really try and ensure that my guests have the best possible experience. There's very few halal places.
Yeah.
But I've been doing this now for 3 years. And
Wow.
I've done several of these flower tours, a couple of whale tours, etc. So, and garden route tours. So I know where to go for really good seafood. I've spoken to restaurant managers, for example, so that they're really good to our guests. They seat us away from the alcohol. They advise us if there is anything that has alcohol in it that has, and they don't contaminate our food. They really are very, very good in that way. And then, of course, in the areas where there aren't that many seafood options, then we self-cater and, you know, we'll have a braai, just a simple one at the end of a day or whatever. But it really makes, firstly, being in self-catering accommodation, at least for part of the tour, makes you feel at home. And as I said, I have accommodation of a very high standard.
Yeah.
For example, I'm taking a group at the end of August, in the last week of August. It's a bespoke, it's a tailor-made tour for 2 couples.
Wow.
And they're quite elderly and they wanted a bit of luxury. And so one of the places we're staying in actually has a hot tub, a jacuzzi overlooking the water.
Wow. You know, I have to say today it's such a beautiful, like, you know, day because I'm seeing you in a different light and I'm seeing you speak on something beyond politics.
Politics,
And
absolutely.
it's so nice to see that you are taking on something that it's in some way it's quite political because it's less wording, more, you know, seeing you know, the flowers and the many landscapes that South Africa has to offer in that sense. But I'm sure there must be a lot of history talks here and there in your tours.
It depends. So
Yeah.
I try to tailor make the tour for my guests.
Okay.
So as I said, I have a group of 4 people who didn't want to go with 2 other people. So they
Okay.
paid the slight extra and a bit of an upgrade to better accommodation, etc. They just wanted it tailor-made for them.
Wow.
Last year, one of the groups I had was just 5 women, ladies only. One of the groups I had the year before that was a hiking group. So I arranged hikes for them.
Wow.
I've just cancelled a tour actually for this coming weekend for somebody who was a floral artist who was very, very keen to go. This was the only weekend she had. She wanted to go with her family. And last week I advised her not to go this weekend. And I'll tell you why. It's because this is the rainy season. So in a 5 or 6 day tour, you expect at least 1 day of rain,
Yes.
maybe 2. And that's why I have backup activities up my sleeve, okay? But this particular weekend, the entire region, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday is going to be raining. And, you know, and this woman, as I said, she's a floral artist. So I did not want her to be disappointed. I felt it would be unethical of me to actually take her on a tour where she wouldn't see much flowers. Because the flowers, of course, love the sun. So they really come out at their best when there's sunshine. So while I can't always predict the weather, in this particular case, I could see that all the days of her tour were going to be rainy. And unfortunately, she can't come on another date this year, but she has actually committed to coming on one of my other tours, maybe the whale one or the rooibos one next year. So,
you know, one thing I'm certainly appreciating from this conversation is how considerate you are. You're not about, you know, getting, in this instance, being capital around the whole aspect of giving tours, but you're more about giving experience to the individuals who are joining in on this tour. Now, speaking on this current tour that's taking place, can you tell us a bit on the kind of activities that you have planned, and if you are able to share the backup activities in case the weather is deciding to weather?
the weather is decided. It will decide the weather at least one day, as it is, as I said, the rainy season. But what's amazing about that too is that you might drive up into the Northern Cape one day and maybe on your left-hand side is total desert.
Yeah.
And then 3-4 days later, after there's been a day of rain, you're driving back on your right-hand side, it's like carpets of flowers. So it's really quite amazing. And you know, it's stunning. Well, some of the activities, we go walking in flower farms,
Okay.
okay, but we also go into valleys and we literally chase flowers. So I have lots of good intel on the ground. And every night before I go to bed myself, I check out the intel and then I decide, okay, so on the itinerary we were supposed to go to Van Reinsdorp or to the Namaqualand National Park. But people are saying there isn't much left in the park or there isn't much there yet, depending on when we're going. So instead of going there, I will suggest to the group that we go into the Bido Valley where yesterday or today, you know, there was a huge floral display. So I keep my ears open and my kind of ears to the ground, and I have a good network, etc., because I've been doing this for a couple of years. And I think people appreciate, the locals appreciate when you're passionate about what they have to offer.
Yeah, yeah.
So they really give me the gen. If you
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I'm loving
you know,
the network you
I
have.
will change the itinerary after making shura with my group. That is why I like small groups, because you can come to a consensus.
Yes.
You know, and you can say, oh, well, you know, we can try and do that the day after tomorrow, but tomorrow let's really focus on this. Some of the backup activities, well, there are lots of farms in the area, so I could take you to visit olive farms. I could take you to do olive tasting. Of course, there's wine farms as well, but we don't want to go there, although we could do grape tasting, I suppose. There's rooibos tea tasting. There's cheese places in the area. So you can see I'm a bit of a foodie, but also there's amazing architecture. If the group's interested in architecture, there's some really stunning examples of early Cape Dutch architecture. Some of the kinds of churches you will see in places like Nieuwoudtville, for example, you won't see anywhere else in the country.
Wow.
And there's usually, at flower season, a huge craft market inside the church.
Whoa. This is
Then there's
exciting.
activities like on the good days. So in some of the flower fields, there are these silent electric vehicles, cars that you can self-drive through the flower field. So if you're not very much of a hiker or a walker, you can do that. So it depends on the group. Obviously, as I said, when I had a group of hikers, I arranged specialized hikes for them. A couple of them wanted to go mountain climbing. I arranged that for them as well. So basically, anything you're really interested in, whether it's history or art or architecture, anthropology, there's a wonderful San history and Nama history in that area. There's an amazing heritage site. There are some really, really under-marketed rock art caves, etc. So there's a lot. There's waterfalls, there's pools, there's the sea. There's occasionally, if you get lucky, whales and dolphins. So in some areas, there's river cruises, flamingos, bird watching. You name it, and this region has it. You just have to know where to find it.
It is an adventure. And just in closing, Aisha, unfortunately, we have run out of time.
Sure.
Can you share with us the details in terms of when is the tour, how much for the tour, and any other details you feel like we've left out through our conversation?
Okay, so I'm running tours from the 20th right through to mid-September.
Oh, wow.
Okay, which is generally the best season for these tours. My last week of August, as I've said, has been booked up already, and I've got a hold on the first week of September. But I do have a tour opening in the week of the 20th of September, and as well in the second week of September from the 9th to the 13th, when the weather is reputed to be gorgeous. However, I would say if you can, do the 20th to the 25th, because the flowers are early this year. They were already starting to bloom in the far north in mid-July. So if you really want to see spectacular displays, go earlier rather than later this year. Although if you go with me, I'll make sure you do see lots of flowers. You won't always go to where the people 2 weeks ago went, but you will see spectacular flowers.
And your details, in case we didn't mention it before. Like
I don't think you did. So I can be contacted on Instagram at Ayesha Kajee or on 081-739-2906. That's a WhatsApp number as well as a normal SMS number. And as I said, if you want a guide, I'm an experienced tour guide. I've been guiding tours overseas for the last 2 decades. And now I'm really keen to show people the beauty of our home country. Although, newsflash, there's a cruise and Umrah coming up as well.
Oh, and I think for that you better stay tuned to, really following my guest tonight, Ayesha Kajee, and also just keeping in contact with her. Who knows, she could be putting you into a WhatsApp group where you never miss any information. But Ayesha, jazakallah so much for really joining us this evening and showing us a different side to you and the beautiful offerings that you have for all individuals who are looking for a great time and are looking to explore South Africa in the most remarkable way. Jazakallah so much for joining us.
I mean, Jazakallah khair for having me on. And yeah, families, get your friends together, get your family groups together, and come and see this real miracle. It honestly, subhanallah, it is a miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's one that's on our doorstep. For what you would pay for one person to go to Holland or to Japan, your entire family can see the Namaqualand daisy spectacle.
SubhanAllah. Jazakallah once again. Viewers at home, that was my guest, Mrs. Ayesha Kajee, who was sharing in on what you can expect on the Namakwa and West Coast Bloom Escape Flower Tour led by Ayesha Kajee herself. Make sure you make use of those contact details as well as social media handles so you can find out more and never miss a tour. But for now, let's head over to a net break. We'll see you just after this.